Hello, I'm Nathan Leahy and welcome to Next Week in Gaming. So our first release next week is on Monday the 14th of March, and this is by Hopoo Games. This is called Deadbolt. Now this is a game that I didn't realise was releasing quite so early actually. Really cool game, got like a little bit of a mixture between Hotline Miami and Not a Hero. Obviously I go on about Not a Hero a hell of a lot because it's one of my favourite indie games, but this is a game where you are playing the Reaper, except it has a catch, and that is you die in one hit. So it's got that, definitely got that Hotline Miami vibe in that it's really quite fast paced, but it's also a bit stealthy. It's like quite a lot of focus on stealth, and it has a couple of weird little aspects which I guess could be likened to that of Gunpoint. It doesn't have like the hacking of the buildings or anything, but it does have like vents that you can go through. And basically you play the Reaper and you've got to sort of stem the tide of the undead because they're getting a bit too unruly. And it's got like this hit list very similar to like Contract, for example, or actually the original Gunpoint game in the first place. So it's really cool, really fast paced, fantastic overall, and it's just looking like it's going to be a really quite a clean cut game. So definitely check that one out on Monday. So our next release is on Friday the 18th of March, and this is by Epic Games. This is the MOBA Paragon. Now this is one of many of these weird sort of shooter stylized MOBA games that have just been flocking out recently, and the only way I can describe them is like the smartwatch industry, in that nobody ever asked for it, nobody really needs it, but all of these massive companies just seem to have developed a market in the hopes that the market will become a market in the first place and they can make loads of cash out of it. So I'm not really a fan of MOBAs anymore. I've played a couple of the generic ones like Dota and LoL and Smite and whatnot, but it just feels like a dirty word at this stage, and anything that's got that tag slapped on it just seems to be universally shunned by people because of its genre. But you know, it could be a fantastic game. I haven't played any of them yet. I probably will jump into Overwatch just for a little bit, just to get a general idea of how this genre is going to work out. But one thing I have to say is Epic are just so good when it comes to graphics. Like, their texturing for every single game they ever bring out just generally looks quite awesome. Obviously they tend to follow trends when it comes to shooters, and they have the grey brownie, just grey everything, but the graphics in this are really looking pretty damn tip top. So I probably will download and play Paragon just because it looks really shiny and it has a lot of characters that look quite awesome. So it looks fantastic. It's got a card system. Everything seems to have a card system these days since Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering and whatever online became popular. So I'm not convinced of this whole card system. Everyone just seems to be using these wonderful buzzwords in their games to make people buy them because they have these things in them. But you know, it looks cool. It could potentially be awesome. And who knows, this market may actually take off. Our next release is a game called Void Destroyer 2, and this is by Iteration 11. Now, this game doesn't have a specific release date, but it's coming out sometime in the first quarter, which basically we've got like a couple of weeks left, so it has to be coming out some point soon. Now, this game looks actually quite awesome, and the reason why I decided to dump it in this article is because cel-shaded graphics and sort of the style of the game is a little bit crazy. So there is like a storyline mode, but there's also a couple of multiplayer skirmish crazy stuff to do, and it's a game where you sort of start off with one ship and you can control it in an RTS fashion, but then you can upgrade it, build onto it, add things to it, but then you can buy other ships, and then you can sort of dive into those individual ships on a whim and control them individually, and then you can sort of expand out to an RTS style sort of gameplay element. You can then pause time so you can make tactical decisions, and then you can build an even bigger fleet, and then you can go full on RTS and then dive into each and every single individual ship and just go crazy. So it's actually a really awesome idea. It kind of reminds me of Natural Selection, where you've got that sort of RTS stuff where you have a commander that's throwing things down and then people playing the individual units. So the graphic style is that cel-shaded sort of, it looks quite awesome. And you're in like this sandboxy asteroid field, which is quite plain when it comes to sort of the backdrop and the rear imagery, so that could probably use a little work, but it is in early access. It's releasing in 2017 as a full game, I think, but it actually looks like a relatively cool concept. Whether or not that will come to fruition is another thing altogether. Next week we'll be throwing in something a little bit more interesting. The last time I did an interview was probably about a year ago with Create Entertainment, and it sort of didn't gain a huge amount of traction, and then suddenly we received tons and tons of traffic for it. So it seems like you guys kind of enjoyed that. So what I've done with Upstream Arcade is I've organised a little bit of an interview thing, a little bit more interview as opposed to a Q&A, and what they've said is, yeah, we'll do it this week. Not entirely sure when, because I've been ill, they've been ill, crazy stuff has been happening, but you've probably noticed I've been dumping a load of their posts on our Facebook page recently, because their secret little project has moved from the stage of concept art and 3D modeling to the stage where they're starting to show these gameplay snippets, and things are looking really quite interesting in that department. It's got the same art style as The Marvelous Mistake, but the actual gameplay is very, very different, and it seems to have like this frame-by-frame action thing where you can dive about and run along walls, very similar to Street Fighter style stuff, and a little bit of Matrix, I guess. And it actually looks really cool, and I'm quite excited about it. So we're going to be doing an interview with them, and we might be able to sort of pull away a little bit of information about their new project. So yeah, hopefully that will drop sometime next week, probably before Friday, I would imagine. So keep your eyes out for that. So finally, our review title for next week will be Hitman Episode 1. That will be published on Thursday the 17th of March at 12:30 as usual. I have been messing around with the beta for the last couple of weeks. I got key ages back, and the game, it was a little bit clunky here and there, but it has been slowly growing on me, and early impressions have actually been reasonably decent. I mean, it still seems to have a few little teething problems when it comes to just them throwing storyline into a game that's all about stealth and cool stuff. And for the most part, a lot of the people I'm speaking to have actually said that it's reasonably good. I mean, it looks nice, it plays nice. And so I got my review key last night, I think, and I'm not superhuman, so I can't get an entire review done for episode 1 within a day. But we will have it sort of done usual time around Thursday, just so I can take my time and get through some of those unlock things, because there's this part of the game where once you've completed the level in Paris, all the story modes, you get like these optional side objectives where you can complete them, kill certain enemies via certain objectives, and then unlock new items. So it's a nice way of making their game a little bit more replayable and making the episodes feel like you're getting a little bit more for your money, I guess. So yeah, that'll be published on next Thursday. So that's it from us at Next Power Up. Join us next week on Thursday for our weekly review of Hitman, and of course next week on Saturday for our next Week in Gaming episode. As usual, leave your comments in the section below for what you guys have been playing. As you can probably tell, I've been working all day, literally went straight to F&M at the local comic book store after that, and then came back here to record. Actually did reasonably well, went for 3 for 1. Final game probably should have won because I seemed to have the strongest deck there, but got mana screwed, so that was a little bit irritating, but I came third, so it's not at all bad. So yeah, I probably look absolutely awful at the moment, pretty knackered, nice red eyes. But yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next week on Thursday.